course. Yeah, this is cool. I'm happy to do it.
Well, of course, people are going to want to know about making bagpipes, and I hope that we get to talk a lot about that. But before we get there, I kind of want to know how you got to making bagpipes, like from the day you were born up until the day you first approached a lathe. What happened in between those 2 points of time? A lot of people will know your dad. He's kind of bagpiping royalty here locally.
Yeah.
I don't imagine, like, knowing him a little bit, I can't imagine that you might have grown up with like sort of a Beethoven, like drunk father comes home at night and wakes you up in the middle of the night and makes you play your scales kind of situation. But what was it like growing up in a bagpiping family? Because that's not something I personally have experienced.
Yeah. So, when I teach students, I always give them a disclaimer that I don't remember learning.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like I sort of, by the time I was, 5 or 6, I was already playing a practice chanter.
Were like junior size practice chanters a standard thing that back then, or like were you just spreading your fingers real far?
No, they had small practice chanters. I even have a really tiny set of like bagpipes too
Really?
that I would carry
Aw.
during parades. Yeah. So they were pretty cool. And
Yeah.
they just took practice chanter reeds and I could blow in those. So
Were the drones functional too, with just some practice chanter reeds in them?
yeah, mostly they didn't sound good, but
Yeah. Luckily, it
they,
wasn't too loud, huh?
yeah, they worked. So yeah, like I just grew up playing. I grew up around it all the time. Um, so
And
yeah,
were you always there in the Bountiful, Utah area, or had you lived elsewhere before ending up where you are now?
no, I grew up in the Bountiful area.
Yeah.
Since I was small. The biggest move in my life was when I was 2 years old. We moved next door.
Did you really?
Yeah. So yeah, I just grew up here in Bountiful, and
Awesome.
yeah.
Well,
Um,
what was it like? What do you remember from learning? Like, because I know I have kids and I've been a kid. I know that there can be rebellious periods and other periods of interest. Like, have you ever at some point felt like this is a Luke Skywalker Darth Vader situation, or like at what did you at any point go like, you know what I'm gonna do to rebel? I'm gonna win competitions, or did you ever throw your pipes away and be like, screw you, Dad, I'm never playing pipes again?
let's see, not really. Um, Probably what distracted me from piping the most was sports. I was really into soccer.
Oh, sure.
I played a lot of soccer, and so when I was probably around 10 to about 13, I didn't play much bagpipes.
Mm.
That was sort of my rebellious stage. And then about 13, I started to really get back into it a lot
Mm-hmm.
and split my time a little bit more. And then when I was in high school, I decided I didn't like sports as much anymore, and I was going to devote my passion to just bagpiping mostly.
Yeah. So I don't have a super strong grip on the anatomy of how it was Utah Pipe Band that split and Wasatch formed, but I feel like that didn't happen until you were at least nearing adulthood, if not in adulthood, right? And so were you playing with Utah Pipe Band from a small age, or was it something else?
Yeah, I was. I was playing with Utah Pipe Band from very young, and the split actually happened when I was serving an LDS mission.
So
So I
you came
came
home to a
home
different world,
to a
huh?
different world. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah. So yeah, I was 21 when it happened.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah, when that split happened. So yeah.
Gotcha. And if I'm not mistaken, you have traveled for playing your pipes and stuff like that. Like tell me about, has it all been competition? Have you done other stuff? Like what's on your piping CV?
Um. Yeah, I traveled a lot just to playing competitions. When I
Mm-hmm.
was a teenager, my buddies and I used to just, load up one of our trucks and then go to California to play in competitions for the weekend and just sleep in the truck.
Yeah.
Um, so I had a lot of fun doing that. And then in 2008 and 2009, Justin Howland and myself, we played with Triumph Street in their first 2 years as a grade 1 band. So
That's
we
so
traveled
cool.
up to Vancouver quite a bit during those 2 years. And then we played in both the North American the first year and then the World Championships the second year with that band. And that was really life changing for my bagpiping career, at least.
I don't doubt it. I've only become aware of Triumph Street as they've come into the limelight of winning competitions. Am I mistaken in thinking that they have since disbanded? Are they still around?
I'm actually not sure. I think they probably are disbanded, but
Yeah.
yeah, that happened a few years after I had stopped playing with them.
That's probably why, right? Like, they're like,
Yeah.
without Ross around,
Oh,
what are we
yeah.
even doing?
No, no. Yeah, I don't know what happens exactly with that. I more know about how they formed than how they, petered out. So,
Well, now what like personally, I've competed with grade 5, grade 4, and juvenile bands.
yeah.
That's been my personal experience. I've heard people talk about competing with grade 1 and grade 2 bands as it being like significantly more intense. I don't remember when Wasatch or Utah has had a grade 2 band. Has either band ever had a grade 1 competition band?
No.
Okay, I didn't think they
No.
had. So for you going to Triumph Street, was there a lot of I was gonna say culture shock. Of course, it's based in a different place geographically and stuff like that. But I mean like culture shock in as far as like how much you practice, what it's like to go to rehearsal, that kind of stuff. Was there a big change there for you?
Yeah, quite a bit. It was definitely a lot more intense. But not necessarily in a bad way. Actually, that's, partly what made it fun. But yeah, you just had to be on your toes a lot more, and yeah, you're significantly more nervous about messing up.
Yeah.
I would say. So yeah, it was really intense, but also just super amazing.
Yeah. Do you feel like the intensity was such that like I mean, since it was kind of a positive intensity, is it something that a person could continue doing year after year in perpetuity, like forever? Or is the nature of a grade 1 competition band such that people really kind of have to cycle through every few years because it's hard to keep up with how intense it is?
I I don't know exactly. I would be able to do it
Yeah.
in perpetuity, and I think a lot of people could, but it's definitely not for everyone.
Yeah.
I would say that, yeah.
Is that an open invitation to any grade 1 pipe majors who happen to be listening that if they need another piper, Ross Morrill's available? Because I think you're busy right now, right? What are you doing with Wasatch?
We're pretty busy. Like, hopefully, my goal is before I die, we can get a band from the Utah area to get into grade 1.
And you guys are knocking on the door? You're in grade 2, right?
We're in grade 2. I wouldn't say knocking on the door, but we're plugging away.
Yeah. That's pretty cool. I've always been impressed by Wasatch. It's kind of like it's this the well-oiled machine is the metaphor that always comes to my mind. Excuse me. That's the way it looks from the outside, at least. I'm sure that you have to do plenty of hard work on the inside, but it seems like there are a lot of really great systems in place. So you're the pipe major of the grade 2 band, right?
Yes.
Do you feel like the organizational structure of that Wasatch has built up over the years maybe takes some of the burden from the mind of the pipe major so you can focus on music? Or are you spending a lot of time still like reminding people to clean their bagpipes and helping people with reed maintenance and stuff like that?
No, so the organizational structure of Wasatch is ideal for a pipe major because I can just worry about the musical aspect of it. There's a lot of bands where the pipe major does everything, uniforms, travel, everything.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just too much. They can't possibly keep up with it all, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So yeah, like it's a great organization for that. Tons of people are involved, and we have like an executive board, a music committee, and we have all these different entities within the organization that keep it running really well.
Mm-hmm.
And that means that I can just focus on making sure that we play better. And keep improving in that aspect. And so, yeah, it's really great. It's ideal for a pipe major, and yeah, I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel bad for our pipe major every time he sends out a practice reminder. And I just think, man, maybe by instead of feeling bad, I should step up and do something, right? But I just think to myself, like, this poor guy, he's doing so much.
Yeah.
But sometimes we don't know anything different, you know? It
Yeah.
has surprised me over the years as I've got little glimpses into how Wasatch works. Like, I remember the first time that I realized I was talking with my buddy Kevin, and he was talking about how, like, it makes sense, and I was like, man, you're right, it makes sense, but I had never seen it this way before, that, like, a pipe band can, like, lean on people who are not competition players within the band. Like, those committees, they can be filled with humans who are interested in the pipe band, who are not playing pipes and drums.
Yeah, we actually have a lot of people in our different committees that don't play at all in any of the they're like relatives or moms who are just interested in, the organization and, providing an outlet for their, kids to have a hobby and stuff. So yeah.
That's pretty cool. And it's like a mental block that I still, even when I recognize it, I still have a hard time getting over it sometimes. Because sometimes it's like, we'll have people come to our band's like little free class or something, and I'll think like, oh, that person could sure help us a lot, with like, any sort of like job of like, scheduling parades or anything like that. But I think, oh, but we can't ask them. They don't play pipes or drums. We can't ask them. That would be, I'd be, imprudent. I'd be bothering them,
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what about soccer? You left it behind, but do you still get excited about it? Do you have a favorite team or club? I think you're supposed to say club, right? When you're talking about football.
Yeah. I don't know. Like, yeah, I still like to watch it. I like Real Salt Lake. They're a great team. They're fun to watch. I definitely have gone to a few of their games and stuff. So yeah, I still like it. Definitely.
Yeah. So, do you play recreationally at all?
No, I don't. I wouldn't go that far.
Gotcha. Nothing wrong with being a spectator and appreciating it for what it is.
Yeah.
So have you ever been interested in branching out to other stuff? I know that right now bagpiping takes up a lot of your time, but do you have other, whether it be musical or otherwise? I mean, even turning stuff. Do you turn bowls too, or is it all pipes all the time?
A little bit. Actually, I would say like what I like to do is for sort of a hobby that's related to making bagpipes is I like to restore old furniture.
Oh.
So that's sort of what I get into when I'm not, doing bagpipe stuff. And it's a lot of fun. I've done a lot of fun projects with that. So yeah.
Do you get excited about Antiques Roadshow? You're watching that. Look at that chair. What a great chair.
Yeah, no, I love it. Actually, my favorite show, it was recently taken off of Netflix, but it was called The Repair Shop.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and they just like fix old cool things.
Yeah, I watched an episode where they fixed an accordion. I thought that was awesome.
Yeah. Sometimes they get instruments and stuff. So no, I love that stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, super cool. So, do you have any, like, you did mention that you don't necessarily remember learning, but you are so much in this world and you've been around. Like, what kind of advice do you give to people? Maybe I would say people who are new to it, but I'm kind of curious. Do you have advice for someone like me? Let's make this all about me, Ross.
Okay.
I've been playing pipes for about 20 years. I didn't start as early as you did. I started with the Payson High School program, so I started like junior high. And like, I really love it and it's a lot of fun. Sometimes I'm not that committed to it, but I want to be. Like, I feel like I'm floating in the middle somewhere, like what?
Yeah.
What can I do to improve my piping, Ross Morrill? Like, what can a normal average dude like me? What's some general generic advice that you might give?
Well, I think first of all, you got to figure out and be, confident in what you want your piping to do for you, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So it's not going to be the same for everyone. Like, I'm hardcore. Like, I couldn't even really call piping my hobby anymore. It's actually my full-time job.
Yeah.
Which is nice, but obviously not everyone has to be like that. And not everyone has to be to the level of grade 1 band or, or even a competition soloist. So, and there's nothing wrong with that. For anyone, like it's just a good hobby to have no matter what, I think. I think everyone needs a good hobby, something that they can work on and improve themselves through. But it doesn't have to be to any specific level. You just have to decide what that level is for you. Like, hey, I want to just be a playing member in this grade 5 band or grade 3 band, or I just want to play grade 4 solos. So figure out what you want to do with piping, and there's so much, right? You could just play on your own or find other musicians to play with. So there's tons of options out there. Figure out what you want to do, and then set some goals in that aspect.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense.
Sometimes it
does feel like if I'm not playing if I'm not playing as good as Ross, then I might as well not be playing at all.
No,
if I'm not Stuart Little, then what am I doing here?
Yeah, exactly. Because it could be the same for everyone. Like there's always someone who's better or does X skill better. For anyone. So it's not a good way to look at your hobby.
Oh, I appreciate that. Do you have any? While you were with Triumph Street, or maybe otherwise, I'm only vaguely aware of the Cape Breton piping tradition. I'm intrigued. It makes me feel excited. I recently listened to an episode of the Way Too Twag Bagpipe and History podcast where he interviewed, I think his name is Barry Shears, who's this big Cape Breton piper, and a lot of the stuff he talked about, man, got me excited. It was just some cool stuff. Have you encountered that kind of world of sub-world of piping, or other sub-worlds of piping that get you excited, or are you like a competition guy through and through?
I'm trying to think. I'm not super familiar with the Cape Breton stuff. My friend Justin Howland is a lot more. He played with a bagad, which was cool. I don't know if it's even the same. So yeah, I'm not super familiar with that sub-world. But yeah, a little bit. I'm familiar with like small piping and Celtic ensembles. My dad played in a Celtic ensemble for most of my life. I can play small pipes and I make them as well. They're very fun to make.
Yeah, actually, that was before I ever saw a set of your Highland pipes. I saw a set of your small pipes. You had a set at a it's that one that Jameson does, that Piping in the Desert competition.
Oh yeah.
You'd brought a set to one of those a few years ago, and they sounded and looked really cool. That was the first that I was aware that anybody in Utah was making pipes.
Yeah. They're super fun. So I'm a little bit familiar with that. I'm not actually, compared to my dad especially, I'm not a great small pipe player because growing up I just wanted to be a good Highland piper and focus on the one skill. But when I started making them, I figured I should be able to play them a little bit. So I learned a little bit with that.
Yeah, and you do play them with bellows, right?
Yep.
Yeah, right on. Now, do you make your own reeds as well?
For small pipes, I make everything, and that's partly why they're so much fun to make. I make the bag and the bellows and the reeds and everything. That's a lot of fun. I don't for Highland pipes, and part of the reason is with small pipes, there's not so many super established makers, and there's so many different styles that it's better to just learn to make your own reeds and bags for the style of pipes that you're specifically making. But for Highland pipes, it's not exactly the same, and some of the skills are more complicated. Like pipe bag making is different because it's a wet system rather than a dry one. So I don't do all the reeds and bags and stuff for Highlands, but for small pipes I do.
Gotcha. That's super cool. What do your other family members, other than your dad, what do your other family members think about your many hours spent on piping stuff?
I guess some of them would be annoyed.
Yeah.
Especially my youngest sister.
At this point, they have to have accepted it, though, right? There's no hope of this ever changing.
Yeah, I think so. My oldest sister, Mackenzie, actually teaches Highland dance, and
Mm.
she's very successful at that. And she's probably the one that's most into the sort of world of, Scottish culture, other than myself
Mm-hmm.
and my dad.
Yeah.
Everyone else has sort of just come to terms with it, I guess.
Yeah, they just have to them and your neighbors as well, right?
Yeah, yeah. Luckily, especially up at my dad's house, where our shop is, our only neighbor is my uncle, and his whole family is into it as well, to one extent or another.
Yeah.
So, works out.
That's the way to do it. You got to surround yourself with people who will at least tolerate, if not also be excited about it, right?
Yeah.
Now, who do you think, Ross? And go ahead and you don't have to be bashful about this. Who is your biggest fan?
Who is my biggest fan?
Yeah.
Probably my dad, I would say.
Aw.
Yeah.
Your dad is like a staple of the scene for me. I like when I think of your dad, I immediately see him standing in the prep area at the pacing games, just helping everybody tune up.
Tune up, yeah.
Whether they're in his band or not, just helping people tune as they head over to compete for the solos.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome. You guys have been able to share a hobby and not lose your relationship, because I think that could tear a relationship apart, honestly.
I think it could. I think it actually brings us together.
That's good.
We, other than piping, we actually don't have a lot in common.
So good thing there's piping, huh?
Yeah, so it like really keeps us together, and it connects us in a very strong way.
Yeah. Now, where you've been playing for a really long time, Ross, do you have any absolute favorite tune that you feel like is evergreen? Like you've known it for a long time, but you keep coming back to it because it just feels so good or sounds so good, like you're never going to stop loving that tune?
Oh, geez. Actually, the first one that comes to mind, it's a tune that I'll never stop playing in solos ever, is Mrs. McPherson of Inverran, actually.
Mm. Was that a Gordon Duncan tune?
No.
Oh, okay. My bad.
He's
got so many that are named after people. Like it's hard to keep
Yeah.
track of them.
No, yeah, it's a pretty famous reel.
Yeah, gotcha.
And I just love the tune, and I've played it for solos for a long time, and I probably always will.
Awesome. What about tunes that are on your list that you want to learn? What's at the top of that list that you haven't got to yet?
Tunes that I want to learn.
Or are there any? Maybe you've learned all the tunes. I don't know. I don't know your life. Maybe you know everything.
No, I'm always trying to learn new music, even if I don't like plan to use it.
Yeah.
It's just very useful skill. It helps keep the memory sharp and the music reading good.
Yeah.
So I'm always learning new music. I'm currently learning. So my favorite composer is Donald McLeod by far. With amongst my friends and bandmates, it's almost a joke, because we play a lot of Donald McLeod music, and I play a lot for solos. But I'm just recently learning a Donald McLeod march called Eileen Donan Castle, named after the famous castle over in Scotland. And it's a beautiful march, so that's top on my list right now. I've almost got it.
Yeah. Do you have any regular strategies that you employ to memorize music? I recently talked to Swan about Stephanie Byrne's book about memorizing music, so I'm curious if you have any practices that you use.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. That is an interesting question. I wish I could teach the skill a little bit better than I do. I think that the way that I learned bagpiping was mostly by ear and by mimicking. I didn't read music until I was in high school, actually.
Wow,
and
really? That long?
Yeah, that long. I'd already been playing for a long time, and in high school I decided I have to learn how to read music, so I did.
Yeah.
So because of how I learned to play, memorizing music is, I think, a little bit easier for me, just because my brain functions primarily around the melody of a tune.
Yeah,
more
that makes
than
sense. Like you're
more
hearing it
than
and feeling it more than seeing it.
yeah, more than like picturing notes on a page and following along,
Interesting.
So yeah, I guess that means my biggest advice was to be able to hum the melody of a tune, and that's going to help you memorize it faster than anything else, in my opinion.
No, that makes a lot of sense. That jives with I think it was Swan who was telling me that he'd like not proctored. What's the word? Stewarded for, I think it was Stuart Little for a dojo thing.
Yeah.
I think that's what he was talking about when he told me this. Maybe I'm wrong. He'll let me know if I'm wrong. But I think it was Stuart Little who said that he would, when he's learning a tune, first he listens to it in as many varieties as he can find it. Like anytime anybody's recorded it, he wants to find that and listen to it. And then he sings it. And only after that does he start playing it. So that jives with stuff I've heard from other people as well.
Yeah.
And I do find it interesting that, Ross, it seems like, this sort of like mythical past of like the Pembroke tradition and stuff like that, right? That where like playing bagpipes, well, playing any kind of music certainly goes back beyond the invention of written music, written staff music. And so it's like you in miniature in your own lifetime have been able to experience like this longer expanse of history of how to learn music,
Yeah.
It's like
I guess
you were
yeah.
centuries ago when you were a child, and then you got caught up to the modern age in high school, and it's kind of cool. You got like this sort of like full breadth experience of music learning.
Yeah. It is interesting.
Yeah.
So like a lot of parade tunes, especially parade tunes, like Green Hills Battlezor is a good example.
Right.
I never was taught it, and I never looked at any music for it.
But you probably don't remember not knowing it, huh?
Yeah, exactly. So like I just picked it up during parades,
Yeah, it's like in your blood at this point.
Yeah, and funny side story, like because of that, like I sort of inserted some of my own embellishments, through that process. And when I went to play at Triumph Street, they teased me over a couple of them and had me fix them. And that was kind of funny. But, there was no hard feelings because it's like I didn't actually learn this tune. I just picked it up.
Yeah, that you oughta someday write a little book of call them Rossisms or something, like little embellishments that you and only you have come up with.
Yeah.
Now, what about people to listen to? Who are some of your favorite pipers or pipe bands to listen to recreationally?
The pipe band that I listen to most is Field Marshal Montgomery.
Mm-hmm.
It's just simply because I think their pipe corps is the best it's ever been. I just love listening to them. I'm a huge tone guy, as a pipe maker and stuff.
Oh, of course, that makes sense.
And their tone is just silly good. So like they're fun to listen to. So that's probably the pipe band I listen to most.
Yeah.
I'd
imagine that most people listening are familiar with them, but just in case they weren't, do you have a favorite album of theirs? Whether it's because of material or because of how it was recorded. If someone was like, I've never listened to them, where would you tell them to start?
Oh, geez, where would I tell them to start? Actually, I like listening to them most at their competitions, so that might be
gotcha.
a
So
little
hop on YouTube
bit.
or something, huh?
Yeah. There's a great YouTube channel called Drone Chorus, and he, for years, has just gone to all the major championships and recorded everything.
Why didn't I know about this?
I don't know. It's a fantastic YouTube channel that I listen to a lot, and yeah, they're pretty great quality recordings too, given that they're made live and at a contest, right? So,
well, I'll be subscribing today. Shoot.
Yeah, definitely do. Yeah, any listeners out there, go check out Drone Chorus on YouTube, and yeah, he's got a lot of Field Marshal on there, obviously, because they're at all the majors.
Right, because they're always there.
They're always there. So yeah.
Now, looking back at tunes again, Ross, what do you have any tunes that are like sort of your most requested, whether it's from family? Well, maybe your family members don't request anything at this point. Maybe they more request, please don't play. But what are some crowd favorites that you feel like get asked for a lot?
Oh, I think recently, like, people have been asking to hear Highland Cathedral a lot, which
kind of a surge in interest in that tune, huh?
Yeah. I remember like just pacing this year, like somebody yelled out and kept yelling out, please play Highland Cathedral. And we didn't during mass bands. And so like I just struck up and started playing it afterwards.
That's nice of you.
And a bunch of other pipers joined in too, which was kind of cool.
Yeah,
because it was
fun.
Like at the end of the day, it was all over. So, hey, why not?
That's a nice attitude to have. That's very kind of you, because I've been in that at that moment many times myself, where it's like I am not playing my bagpipes for a week. I'm done.
Yeah, yeah. No, I get you.
Well, that's nice of you to give the people what they wanted. Now, if money were no object, Ross, what would be your piping related thing? Would you get a piece of kit? Would you go on a trip? Like, what would be the thing you would do if you had a blank check to do it?
Oh, if I had a total blank check,
Yeah.
I would definitely want to make like a Scottish center where it could have like rehearsal space and recording space and that kind of equipment in it. That would be my dream.
Yeah.
And
Hey,
maybe even
someday. I like that.
maybe even a shop attached to it,
There you
like
go.
I'm not complaining about the shop I have, but like that might be cool.
Yeah.
So that would be my piping related dream if I had no limits on cost.
Yeah. Well, and speaking of your shop, talk to me about this. How did you, like, at what point did you think to yourself, I'm going to make bagpipes? Did you do, like, was there a wood class in high school where you started turning a bowl and then you went, wait, this is the same way they make bagpipes? Or, like, how did you come to it? How did this happen? How did you end up making bagpipes? And for anybody listening who doesn't know, in the notes, in the show notes, I'll have a link to Ross's website. The website's cool, but I would highly recommend following Morrill Bagpipes on Instagram, because there are some it's bagpipe porn is what it is. It's beautiful to look at, and I can't look away. And it makes me drool every time you post another picture of your pipes. They look so pretty, man. And they sound great too. So tell me how you got into making bagpipes.
Okay, yeah. Oh, and real quick, on my Facebook channel, I post a video of every set I make because I test them all, and I always post a video. So you can also listen to them on Facebook.
Perfect.
How did I get into bagpipe making? The job that I had before starting bagpipe making, it's the job that got me familiar with working a lathe.
Mm.
It's a slightly different context, but like all the skills were essentially transferable, right? And so I did that for a while, but I was sort of unhappy doing that.
Mm-hmm. What was it, or would you rather not say?
So it was essentially making industrial parts, I would say.
I see.
And so, and I wasn't necessarily getting, the best pay either. And so if I was like, if I'm not going to make a lot of money, I might as well do something I love.
Hey, heck yeah, man.
And so, at that same time, my dad was retiring from teaching in high school.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was about to have a lot of extra time.
Ross, wait, I'm sorry. We got to pause. I don't mean to throw you off the rails here, but we got to address this. Did your dad teach at the high school where you went to school?
Yeah.
Whoa. Okay. Well, then get off of these rails. What was that like? Was that a positive experience? Because that sounds like when I was in high school, that would have been my nightmare.
I never actually had my dad. He taught calculus, and I was never good at math, so I never had him.
Okay, great. So you ran in different circles.
Yeah, I was not in that circle.
Okay, all right. Well, then we can hop back on the rails. Then your dad was retiring. Then.
Yeah, my dad was retiring, and so he had a little extra time, and all of his kids were all out of the house, and he has a pretty large house, and so he's like, hey, got a lot of extra space, and it's always been a dream of his too to make bagpipes and be in that, and that's sort of what he wanted to get into after he retired.
Yeah, cool retirement project.
Yeah, but he realized he didn't necessarily have the right skills, but I sort of did.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's like, hey, do you want to do this? And I was like, yeah, let's definitely do it.
Yeah.
And so we started just doing a lot of experimentation. And we did that for a few years. And
yeah, I've heard echoes, like people who know you mentioning like how you looked at the interior bores of like what World War I era lorries or something, and exterior profiles from from more modern McCallums or something, like all kinds of comparisons and tests and stuff to find your final sort of shape. Do you have one bore and one profile that you do, or are your pipes different from one set to the next?
So when I started making bagpipes, I wanted to sort of help influence a change in the general attitude of pipe making. For about 100 years or probably even longer, they've all looked kind of the same, right? They're
Yeah.
just black and
Same combing and beating and everything
same
too.
combing and
Yeah.
beating. And African blackwood has been the
I
go-to.
didn't know you could make them out of other stuff, honestly. I thought that was the only option.
Yeah, and I actually think that the reason for that is that African blackwood is so pleasant to turn.
Mm.
So pipe makers are like, why would we use anything
Yeah.
else? It's so pleasant. But it is an endangered species now, and it's getting harder and harder to get.
Yeah.
And that was the case even when we were starting. And so I never even planned on using it much. So
Mm.
we already started experimenting with different woods and stuff like that right from the get go. I've actually not made a set out of African blackwood
Oh,
at all.
really?
Yeah. We
Oh.
have enough African blackwood that we've sort of just snapped up here and there that I can, but I'm
Mm-hmm.
sort of saving it for someday. I don't know.
Sure.
So yeah, we just started doing a lot of experiments, both with wood and bore dimensions. The bore dimensions that I actually have three different bore dimensions styles that we do.
Mm-hmm.
One is based off of a set of 1909 Hendersons.
Mm.
The other is based off of a set of old Glens. We're actually not sure the age, but they're old. And then the third is a combination of the two. Actually, we use the Henderson bass and the Glen tenors, and it's
Mm.
actually a really beautiful combination. And that's sort of become my standard bore model. If people want the full Hendersons or the full Glens, I'll do it. But my standard is that sort of combination.
And I know it can be hard to describe sounds, but how would you describe that sound profile when you've got the Henderson bore and the Glen tenors? What would you call it, or what adjectives would you use to describe it?
I guess the best way to explain it is by contrasting it with either one.
Mm.
So Hendersons have a really prominent drone sound. They're I would call it punchy, very very aggressive, and the
Mm.
bass is huge and sort of encompassing, right? But the tenors cut through it really sharply as well, I
Mm.
would say. So it creates a harmonic that's kind of big and ringy, right?
Mm.
By using the Glen tenors instead of the Henderson tenors, it sort of softens the harmonic and makes it a little more deep. So the harmonics are going to show up bigger on our lower notes like B, A, those kind of
Mm.
low hand notes, and it's just really beautiful and pleasant.
Well, it might be
So
cool. Maybe I'll insert audio from one of your Facebook videos right here so that people can kind of hear us at playing.
sure, yeah, yeah.
And just with this, let me give a disclaimer real quick though that like streaming quality does have an effect on what the listener will hear right now, and so it's gonna sound cool, but like hearing them in person would be even better, of course.
Yeah, it's definitely not the same. But yeah, you can get a good idea of that. Actually, along with that, my favorite wood actually that I've used so far is a wood called Leadwood. I think it provides the best tone, and I'll actually send you a link to a video of that specific
Oh,
wood
perfect.
with the sort of hybrid set we call it, which
Perfect.
which is the Henderson bass and the Glen tenor.
other, like, I know that people use cocobolo. I've seen that one around.
Yeah, it's a great wood.
What are your favorite? Like, is leadwood your absolute favorite at this
It
point, or what other stuff have you done?
Yeah, so for pure sound, Leadwood is my all-time favorite.
Mm,
I'm actually making myself a set out of Leadwood right now. The
mm,
last bit of Leadwood we have, it's kind of hard to find, unfortunately, and we sort of have to keep our eye out, and get it when we can.
mm-hmm.
But it's good enough that I'm like, no, I'm making me a set that I can play solos on.
Yeah.
So Leadwood is my favorite as far as sound goes, but it's not my favorite as far as looks go. I think Kingwood would probably be my favorite
Mm,
looking wood. It's got a really prominent grain, and it's sort of a purplish wood.
yeah.
It's really pretty.
Yeah. That's
So
one. I'm no wood connoisseur by any means, but that is one that I'm familiar with because it is. Yeah, it's darn pretty. What
yeah.
have you ever done a set for somebody out of like a sentimental wood? Like somebody brings you, like I used to play in the major leagues. Here are 3 bats that I used to hit home runs. Will you turn them into drones for me? Or a tree that they chopped down from their backyard or something like that. You ever done like a sentimental set?
Yeah, yeah. Like I'm totally of the mindset that I'll try anything, right?
Yeah.
And so like I've made some pretty weird sets. As far as sentimental woods go, there was a guy in Texas and he wanted pipes made purely out of native Texan wood,
Oh,
right?
sure. Yeah.
And so we made the main body of the pipes out of a wood called bodark, which when it's first turns looks like the color of bananas, like it's
Really?
yellow. Yeah.
That's cool. And
And so
Bodark, that sounds like the name of a dude from Texas. So that's just
yeah,
what a
yeah,
great
it's
name.
good. I forget the other name. It has another name too, but yeah. Anyways, Bodark, and the wood that we used for highlights was persimmons. So um and he actually sent me the persimmons from his backyard.
Oh,
Yeah.
did he?
Yeah. And so we made that set, and yeah, it was funky looking. Eventually it'll turn this really beautiful golden brown, but
Mm.
like when it's first turned, man, it looks like bananas.
I that is one thing you mentioned that you used another wood for accents. That's one of the things that I like most about your pipes. Partly that, like, maybe it's just because I'm tired of seeing so much combing that like I get excited about non-combed pipes no matter where they're coming from.
Yeah.
Which combing is fine. Probably if I hadn't seen it so much, I'd still be excited about it. But the thing I love most about the visual aspect of your pipes is that you're using usually 2 tones of wood to accent each other instead of relying on metal to accent the main wood. I do think that looks really pretty.
Yeah, yeah. I like it a lot. I like doing it and experimenting with it, and yeah, we put a lot of thought into, which woods goes with which and stuff like that. So
Mm.
yeah.
Hello, friends. Just a quick note to make you aware this podcast is something that I love doing and I will keep doing it no matter what. But if you want to send me money, I won't say a nay. The easiest way to do that is through Patreon. Just go to patreon.com/DroningOnPodcast. We do regular drawings for bagpipey albums, books, sheet music, and more, including Droning On swag. All patrons are in the figurative hat from whence the names of winners are drawn, and there are other benefits to members as well. They're all listed there at patreon.com/DroningOnPodcast. And speaking of swag, another way to support the show is to buy cool stuff from my little online shop, bagpipeswag.com. There you can find Droning On stuff as well as other pipey and drummy things that my friends and I make. And if you feel so inclined, I genuinely invite you to follow the show on Facebook. It's super fun to have a way to interact over there, to discuss past episodes, and I also like to bounce ideas off of you, my friends, ask you for input on upcoming interviews, that kind of stuff. I'd like to invite you to join in on virtual book clubs and probably lots of other cool stuff that I just haven't even thought of yet as of this recording. It's easy to find. Just get on Facebook and search Droning On Podcast. And if Instagram is more your jam, we're also on there at droning.on.podcast. You can also email the show at thedroningonpodcast@gmail.com. And links to these sites, social media accounts, and more are in the show notes. Leaving the show a positive rating and review helps others to find it, so feel free to do that. And thank you again for listening, you cool human you. Well, and I kind of messed up the chronology of the story too. So sorry, let me pull you back again. Your dad had retired. He said he had some space. He said, "Hey Ross, you want to come do this?" You were like, "Heck yeah, let's do it." Where'd you go from there?
Yeah, so we just started experimenting a lot, and then once we started finding things we liked, we started making sets and then, posting about them and stuff like that. And then, people eventually got interested enough that I, started doing orders for people.
Yeah. Did you having had the experience that you had, did you know exactly what equipment you wanted, as in lathe, chisels, that kind of stuff, or did that require some experimentation as well?
A little bit, and we've definitely refined our equipment,
Yeah.
as time has passed. So that's been nice.
Yeah.
At first, it was a lot more of a struggle.
Hmm.
Now we have better equipment and it's easier.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'll tell you, Ross. I'm an aspirational wood turner. I had just started. Zach Lees had started teaching me just like in the year before he passed away, and so at this point, part of it is like this sentimental block that I haven't gone back to it much. But I turned one bowl, and I thought it went well. Of course, it warped like crazy afterward. Looked terrible. I got this little like $100 rusty lathe that I bought off of a guy from his backyard.
Oh,
Uh,
cool.
Close by. So maybe it's the equipment. But the last thing I tried to make, I was trying to make a vase. And I put this, it was a log that had already been cut into a cylinder. And I got it really well centered and everything, got it on there nice and tight. I started turning it. And as I started getting the profile, just barely started, it shot off the lathe. And
Yeah.
it didn't kill me, but man, it scared me about bad enough that, like, even if it weren't for the sentimental reasons to be hesitant about going back to it, I'm scared. And so I think about you making bagpipes, and maybe, the image that comes to mind is like those YouTube videos of like the beautiful ribbons of wood flying off over your shoulder and stuff. It seems so zen, but my personal experience was horrifying. And so have you had any injuries, or what has that experience been like for you?
Yeah, at first it was a little bit scary because the materials I used when I learned to work a lathe were a lot more predictable than wood. Wood
Yeah.
is notoriously unpredictable.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so like, yeah, you can be lathing along and not notice a knot and hit it just right, and it can be scary.
Yeah. I mean, I broke a few tools before that incident too, and it's like, man, that could have been my finger.
Yeah, yeah.
We think of this as being like almost like whittling, like, oh, good for the pipe makers. They have a lovely little life. But man, I think it's a high risk occupation, honestly.
It can be a bit scary as you get more and more experience. You sort of get used to working with the wood. You know the
Yeah.
signs, and especially as you get familiar with the specifics of wood. Some are more finicky than others, so you're
Mm.
just going to be a little bit more on guard. And just take the appropriate safety precautions too. Obviously,
Yeah.
is just helps you feel that confidence. So
Yeah, Zach did one time. He got a chunk of wood stuck in his eye, and if I remember right, he was wearing a face mask, but it went up under the face shield and got him in the
yeah,
eye. So from then on, personally, I always wore my glasses because I need them to see, and then
yep.
goggles on top of those, and then a face shield over that as well. Because I wasn't gonna risk it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely important. But yeah.
So what about your dad? Has he ever ended up learning? Like, did you teach him the skill set to turn as well, or has this ended up kind of being that you do it?
So I do most of the turning and stuff. He
Yeah.
definitely helps with that and enjoys it. He runs a lot more of the business
Hmm.
side of that,
Yeah.
which works out good for me because I'd rather just be on the lathe and be the
Hmm.
artist. So yeah, it works out pretty good.
Yeah. What about the leather work? Was there much of a learning curve there to make your bags and your bellows?
A little bit, not too bad. Again, like I had relevant skills from a previous job.
Nice. This was all lining
um,
up, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. It actually it did all seem very serendipitous.
Yeah.
When I started to hit a stride making bagpipes, it felt right. It felt good.
Mm.
It felt like, oh, like I found what I was supposed to do,
Yeah.
almost.
Yeah.
So yeah, the leather. There's a little bit, but also had some previous skills that were relevant in that, and that's a lot of fun too. I like the leather work.
Yeah. Well, if the woodwork has translated into also doing some like furniture restoration and stuff like that, has the leather work turned into like, do you do any, like fancy cowboy wallets or anything like that? You think about sporins sometimes?
I
Or
don't. I need to though,
yeah.
because I have a lot of scrap leather sitting
Yeah,
around.
man. You could make some stuff.
Yeah,
Skin do sheaths and stuff like that.
Yeah, I need to get into that. That's something I haven't done yet.
Yeah. Well, what else do you make? I mean, at this point, you're kind of an artist by trade, whether it's making music or making stuff out of wood and leather. Do you? I mean, what do you paint? Do you sketch? What else do you do?
I in the past I used to do a lot of painting. I don't anymore.
Yeah, you're pretty busy,
Um,
right?
yeah. So I like doing that. I like writing actually. So yeah, I
Yeah.
guess
What
I've
what kind
already
of?
sort of been an artist at heart.
Sure. What kind of writing do you do? Are you a poet or are you a storyteller?
No, I've written some like fantasy novels.
Oh, really? Have they been
Yeah.
published? Should I
No,
be should I be
not
reading these?
no, not at all.
Hey, where can we get them, man? Let's
it
let's get these rolling.
they're not available yet. I'm my biggest fan is actually my girlfriend, and she's always on my case about finishing
Yeah,
the series.
that's a good girlfriend.
I know, so I got to get on it. I owe her.
So if you've been writing fantasy, what fantasy do you like to read? Who do you like to read, or what
Oh,
genres do you like to read?
so many.
Yeah, everything.
My favorite uh, fantasy writer right now is called Terry Mancore.
Mm.
He writes a series called the Spellmonger series. So there's my nerdiness there.
Yeah, that's fine, man. That's fine. Hey,
I
so
love it. So
do you have strong feelings about the Wheel of Time series that's been rolling out?
do I have strong feelings about it? I like it. It's
Yeah,
it's a good series. Yeah,
I haven't tried it out yet, but
yeah.
anything that people like, if there's a dedicated fan base, then you're gonna have people who are angry and people who are enthusiastic. So
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. If you like really complicated high fantasy, then you'll probably like it. If not, then it might not be your cup of tea.
yeah, I am like religiously passionate about Tolkien, and maybe because of that have not ventured much further than Tolkien. Like I end up just kind of reading stuff by Tolkien over and over again every single year. So
Oh, cool.
maybe I should try other stuff too. But it's hard for me
Yeah,
to
sure.
it's hard for me to take a toe out of what's familiar and comfortable.
Yeah, well, a lot of the genre is definitely owed to Tolkien.
Yeah. Now, what about drums? Have you picked up sticks or mallets at any point?
Yeah, I played snare in a grade 5 band one year,
Nice.
just so that I could, learn the basics of snare drumming. So that
And
was fun.
do you feel like it did stuff for your piping? Like, would you recommend this to other pipers that they at
Oh
least
yeah,
pick it up
if
that far?
especially if you're, a pipe major,
Hmm.
it's super useful to have that ensemble experience.
Now, did you learn snare in a similar way to how you learned pipes, where you'd been hearing it so much that a lot of that was kind of by ear and imitation, or was that more of an academic study where you sat down and looked at a book?
Not a little bit. I mean, I've been around pipe bands for so long, and I've been at so many contests, and any player who's been to a lot of contests knows there's a lot of downtime.
Mm,
So
yeah.
you're sitting around the tents with your friends, and you pick up some sticks and start learning some basics
Yeah. Yeah.
just for fun. And then I did make it a bit more when I wanted to actually be like, hey, I want to play with the band. I made it a bit more academic and had an instructor and stuff. So
Mm-hmm. So when it comes to bagpipes, piping, the music, the competition, drumming, any and all of this, the history of it, the intricacies of how to do it, is there anything that kind of comes to your mind, Ross, as something that you want to learn more? You want to know more about that thing over there?
oh, I think for me, it's probably Pibrook. I'm a competent Pibrook player, I would say, but I got started in Pibrook relatively late, like
Mm-hmm.
very late, like in my 20s, mid
Mm-hmm.
20s.
If it makes you feel any
Um,
better, I'm in my 30s and I still don't feel like I'm started. So at least there are people later than you.
yeah, no, I think, and anytime is a good time. I actually make all my students learn a little bit of Pibrook just because I think it's so good for your general piping knowledge and playing.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I definitely feel deficient in that aspect of my playing,
Mm.
and so it's my goal to be a better Pibrook player and just to know more about it. So there's so much history in Pibrook.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Ross, I'm pushing on an hour here. Is there anything that you'd like to throw out there as like a plug for your cool pipes, or any topic that we haven't breached that would be fun to talk about?
I don't know. I guess as far as plugs goes, yeah, just go check out my bagpipes, and if you're interested in custom bagpipes, then yeah, get in touch. Yeah. It's always just been my goal to sort of change how bagpipes, look.
Mm-hmm.
And so if that's something you're also interested in, then yeah, let's make it happen, because there's so much you can do visually with bagpipes that's just not been done yet. So
Yeah.
I think that's too bad.
Yeah.
So that's just my plug. And yeah, I don't know. What else would there be to talk about?
Well,
I can't.
I do often ask people how they feel about pineapple on pizza. What do you think of that?
Oh, I think it's fine. I don't know. I don't understand the
Yeah.
huge
Do you
conflict.
think it's fine as in like you like it, or like to each his own? Let people do what they want with their own pizza.
I mean, it's not my favorite pizza, but I'll eat it
Yeah.
and enjoy it.
There's
It's
no pizza in the
delicious.
world I wouldn't eat personally.
Yeah, it's delicious.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like, it's hard to mess up a pizza.
Amen.
So I think it's good, but also to each their own. Like,
Yeah.
what's up with all the people getting butthurt over pineapple on pizza?
Exactly. Nice, man. Well, at some point during the last like 3 minutes, I'll find a good spot for it to kind of gracefully fade out.
Okay.
And I usually kind of just fade into drones, and then it ends. And so
Oh,